Chapter 1. The Origins of Amor Fati and its Role in Stoicism. Introduction. The phrase Amor Fati, a Latin term that translates as love of fate, holds a special place in Stoicism. It embodies a core Stoic idea, accepting everything that life brings with full readiness and even gratitude. The principle of Amor Fati teaches that no matter the circumstances, we must be in harmony with what happens, seeing each moment as an integral part of our life journey. We begin to understand that everything that happens to us in some way is meant for us and carries a certain meaning. 1.1 Origins and Meaning of Amor Fati in Stoicism. The philosophy of Stoicism was founded in ancient Greece by Zeno of Citium in the early 3rd century BCE and later developed by Roman philosophers such as Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. The Stoics were dedicated to the idea that the universe is governed by a rational, natural order, and that each human life is a part of this larger whole. Therefore, everything that happens in life results from this order and should be viewed as a necessary part of the journey. Amor Fati expresses precisely this sense of alignment with fate. The idea is not only to accept, but to love one's fate. For instance, Marcus Aurelius repeatedly wrote in his Meditations about accepting everything that happens as if we ourselves had chosen it. For him, this was a way to live in harmony with oneself and the world. 1.2 Stoicism and the Philosophy of Acceptance. For the Stoics, accepting fate was key to inner peace and strength. They understood that a person cannot control everything in their life. Many things are beyond our control. However, what we can control is our attitude toward what happens. As Epictetus stated, we cannot change events, but we can change our response to them. Amor Fati does not mean submission or indifference. On the contrary, it is active acceptance of life as it is. The Stoics argued that to achieve inner peace and freedom, we must give up the desire to change what is beyond us and focus on what is within our power. 1.3 The Impact of Amor Fati on Facing Difficulties and Adversities. The principle of Amor Fati is of great importance when facing difficulties and suffering. Instead of complaining about unfavorable circumstances or resisting them, the Stoics suggested seeing them as opportunities for inner growth. This approach makes us stronger, helping us understand ourselves and our place in the world. When we face difficulties, Amor Fati helps change our perspective on them. We start to see them not as obstacles, but as parts of our path meant to teach us something important. This philosophy encourages us to approach difficulties with gratitude, seeing them as an opportunity to become wiser and stronger. 1.4 The Connection between Amor Fati and other Stoic principles. Stoicism consists of many key ideas that interact to form a cohesive worldview. Amor Fati is closely connected to principles such as tranquility and willpower. For example, the principle of tranquility teaches us to remain calm in any circumstances, regardless of what happens around us. Amor Fati contributes to this state by helping us not to worry about what we cannot change. Furthermore, the love of fate strengthens our willpower. When we accept everything that happens to us, we develop the ability to resist desires and fears that often serve as sources of our suffering. Amor Fati becomes a tool to free ourselves from external control and learn to rely on ourselves. 1.5 Amor Fati and Nietzsche, a reinterpretation of the concept. Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century German philosopher, adopted the concept of Amor Fati from the Stoics and developed it further in his teachings. Nietzsche believed that the love of fate was a way to live fully and passionately, accepting all aspects of life without regrets. In his view, true human strength lies in embracing fate as it is, without running from difficulties or avoiding pain. Nietzsche often wrote about the eternal return, the idea that our lives may repeat endlessly, and we should live in a way that we would be willing to live it over and over again. In this context, Amor Fati becomes not simply passive acceptance of fate, but active love for one's existence, even if it is filled with suffering and challenges. Conclusion. The principle of Amor Fati is not just a philosophical concept, but an approach to life that teaches us to accept everything that happens as an essential part of our journey. The Stoics believe that only in this way can we achieve inner peace and happiness that is independent of external circumstances. Chapter 2. How Amor Fati helps overcome hardships and maintain inner peace. Introduction. A key aspect of Stoic philosophy is the idea that to achieve inner peace and harmony, we must learn to accept hardships and adversities as an integral part of life. The concept of Amor Fati teaches us not only to cope with these difficulties, but to love them, finding in them sources of inner growth and self-discovery. This approach helps us to remain resilient and calm, even in the most challenging situations. 2.1 Accepting the inevitable. The Stoics believe that many aspects of life are beyond our control, and attempts to change the inevitable lead only to suffering. Amor Fati implies that we should not resist what we cannot change. Instead, we can change our attitude toward it. This idea is especially relevant during difficult times when the situation feels unfair or tough. The Stoics suggest viewing such moments as lessons or opportunities for growth. Accepting the inevitable helps us reduce the level of stress and emotional tension that arises when we resist circumstances. 2.2 Strengthening inner resilience. When facing difficulties, it's important not only to survive them, but to learn from them. Amor Fati helps to strengthen inner resilience, as it teaches us to view hardships as part of our life journey, making us stronger. This approach helps us to build a strong and resilient character that is not dependent on external circumstances. As a result, we become less vulnerable to negative situations and less prone to suffering. By accepting that everything that happens is part of our path, we stop seeing hardships as unfair or unpleasant and start viewing them as a natural part of life. 2.3 Reprogramming our reactions to stress. Many human responses to stress are automatic: fear, anger, anxiety. However, the Stoics believe that by changing our attitude towards stressful situations, we can reprogram these reactions. Amor Fati teaches us to approach hardships with acceptance, which allows us to change our emotional response to stress. This process takes time and practice, but it significantly reduces levels of fear and anxiety in everyday life. When we stop seeing difficulties as negative and start perceiving them as part of our fate, we free ourselves from many negative emotions and begin to feel more calm and balanced. 2.4 Accepting mistakes and failures. Amor Fati also applies to our attitude toward our own mistakes and failures. Many people suffer because they cannot forgive themselves for past mistakes or missed opportunities. However, the Stoics believe that any failures and mistakes are part of our experience, which helps us to learn and grow. Accepting mistakes as part of our path allows us to free ourselves from feelings of guilt and regret. This, in turn, helps us to focus on the present and use the lessons learned to improve our lives in the future. 2.5 Developing gratitude for hardships. One of the most challenging aspects of Amor Fati is developing gratitude for hardships and adversities. The Stoics asserted that everything that happens is for our benefit, even if it seems painful or difficult at first glance. From this perspective, every challenge and every problem becomes an opportunity for improvement. By developing gratitude for hardships, we change our perception of life, making it fuller and more meaningful. This approach helps us to see the value of every experience and helps us to become more mature and wise. Conclusion. The concept of Amor Fati is a powerful tool for overcoming hardships and maintaining inner peace. It teaches us to accept and even love difficulties as an essential part of life. Chapter 3. Amor Fati as a path to freedom from others' opinions and social expectations. Introduction. One of the foundational principles of Stoic philosophy is the pursuit of inner independence and freedom from external influences. The Stoics teach that we cannot control what others think of us, but we can control our response to their opinions. The concept of Amor Fati, love of fate, serves as a powerful tool to liberate ourselves from dependence on others' views and social expectations. It helps us accept life as it is, without attempting to please others or conform to their standards. 3.1 Others' opinions as a source of lack of freedom. Often, our behavior and decisions are shaped not by our own desires and values, but by the opinions of those around us. This might be linked to social anxiety, fear of judgment, or a desire to fit in with a group. Stoicism teaches that true freedom is found by breaking free from this dependency and no longer allowing others' opinions to affect our inner world. When we constantly worry about how others perceive us, we lose our own freedom. We begin to live not our own lives, but lives that fit the expectations of others. This leads to anxiety, stress, and dissatisfaction. Instead of being guided by external opinions, the philosophy of Amor Fati teaches us to embrace our fate and our decisions, regardless of external circumstances. 3.2 Accepting what cannot be controlled. One of the key Stoic principles is recognizing that we cannot control all aspects of life. We cannot change what others think of us, nor can we force everyone to love and respect us. However, we can control our attitude toward these opinions. Accepting that others' views are beyond our control allows us to stop fighting this inevitable fact. When we learn not to depend on others' assessments, we begin to act more freely and decisively. We stop seeking approval and start doing what aligns with our values and beliefs, not what others demand. This frees us from constant feelings of anxiety and fear of judgment. 3.3 Amor Fati as a tool for self-discovery. The concept of Amor Fati means accepting our lives as they are, including all the positives and negatives, successes and failures. Instead of resisting circumstances, we learn to love them, viewing them as sources of growth and development. This process also involves accepting our own personalities, including our weaknesses and imperfections. When we stop trying to meet others' expectations, we begin to discover our true desires and aspirations. We start living in harmony with ourselves, rather than with those around us. Amor Fati allows us to see our lives as complete and unique, rather than as attempts to please others. 3.4 Embracing social isolation as a natural part of the journey. Accepting Amor Fati sometimes requires us to come to terms with the fact that not everyone will understand or support us. This may lead to a degree of social isolation, which is a natural part of life when we start refusing to please everyone around us. However, Stoics argue that solitude can be not only valuable, but necessary for self-discovery. When we are freed from social pressure, we gain a better understanding of ourselves, our goals, and desires. We are no longer forced to live according to others' standards and expectations, and can fully devote ourselves to our own paths. 3.5 Practicing Amor Fati in daily life. To apply the concept of Amor Fati practically, it's essential to learn to distinguish what in our lives we can actually control and what we cannot. With this understanding, we can let go of struggles with what lies beyond our control. Every time we face a situation where someone's opinion or expectations put pressure on us, we can remind ourselves that these things are beyond our control. This helps us remain calm and make decisions without being overly concerned with what others will think. Thus, every moment in life becomes an opportunity to practice acceptance of fate. 3.6 Inner freedom through acceptance. True freedom does not lie in being liked or accepted by everyone, but in being true to oneself. Accepting one's fate fully helps us let go of the need to justify ourselves to others. We begin to live by our own principles and follow our own beliefs, which brings genuine freedom. When we embrace the concept of Amor Fati, we learn to stay calm and independent despite others' opinions. This opens up the path to inner peace and contentment, as we no longer depend on external factors that might once have influenced our perception and self-worth. Conclusion: the concept of Amor Fati offers us a path to inner freedom, freeing us from dependence on others' opinions and social expectations. Embracing our fate in its entirety, including all challenges and trials, helps us become strong and independent individuals who live according to their values rather than for the approval of others. Chapter 4: How Amor Fati helps accept hardships and challenges as an inevitable part of life. Introduction: the concept of Amor Fati encourages us not only to accept our fate, but also to love it in all its aspects, even when it involves hardships and suffering. Embracing life fully, including its trials and pain, helps us develop inner resilience and courage. Instead of avoiding difficult situations or seeing them as unfair, we learn to view them as opportunities for growth and self-improvement. In this chapter, we will explore how the philosophy of Amor Fati helps us accept difficulties as a natural and important part of life. 4.1 Accepting the inevitability of difficulties. The first step in accepting hardships is understanding that they are inevitable. Life will always include both joyful moments and moments of suffering. The Stoics argued that attempts to avoid difficulties only worsen our suffering, as fighting the inevitable leads to frustration and internal discord. When we accept that hardships are a natural part of life, we stop fighting them and begin to see them as an essential part of our journey. Rather than wishing for an ideal, trouble-free life, the Stoics encourage us to view life holistically, including its challenging moments. This helps free us from illusions and allows us to see difficulties as natural occurrences. Amor Fati teaches us to view hardships not as obstacles, but as stepping stones on our path to inner growth. 4.2 Difficulties as a source of strength and resilience. Challenges can reveal strengths within us that we may not have known existed. When we face trials, we step beyond our comfort zones, allowing us to develop our inner resources. Amor Fati suggests that every difficult situation is not merely a problem, but an opportunity for growth. Instead of complaining about circumstances, we can use them to strengthen our resilience and adaptability. Resilience is the ability to overcome hardships while maintaining inner peace and mental clarity. The Stoics regarded resilience as one of the most important virtues, one that can be cultivated especially in challenging conditions. By accepting trials, we learn to maintain confidence in our abilities and to meet life's challenges with calm. 4.3 Accepting pain as a necessary experience. Pain, whether physical or emotional, is often viewed as something negative that we seek to escape. However, the Stoics believe that pain is an essential part of the human experience, and that by accepting it, we can learn a great deal. Amor Fati allows us to look at pain not as an enemy, but as part of the journey, one through which we can gain wisdom and strength. When we stop avoiding pain and begin accepting it as inevitable, we enrich our lives with new understanding. Instead of regretting that pain exists, we can view it as a teacher that shows us the boundaries of our capabilities and helps us expand them. 4.4 Humility before fate. Amor Fati also implies humility before those aspects of our lives that we cannot change. Incorporating humility into our attitude toward fate helps us stop struggling against reality and start accepting it as it is. Humility does not mean passive acceptance of everything that happens. Rather, it is the willingness to see life as it is, without attempting to reshape it to fit our desires. Humility before fate helps us release excessive expectations and free ourselves from feelings of injustice. Instead of seeing hardships as something undeserved, we can view them as opportunities for self-discovery and growth. Humility frees us from the need to control everything, allowing us to remain calm, even in difficult situations. 4.5 Stopping the blame on external circumstances. A key idea in Stoicism is to stop blaming external circumstances for our problems. When we see hardships as the result of external factors, it robs us of a sense of responsibility for our lives. Amor Fati teaches us to focus on what we can control, our attitudes and actions, rather than on what is beyond our power. Instead of complaining about unfavorable conditions, we can use them as opportunities to strengthen our character. This helps us abandon the role of a victim and take responsibility for our lives, making us stronger and more independent. 4.6 Difficulties as a way to strengthen the self. When we begin to see hardships as opportunities to strengthen ourselves, we become more whole and self-aware. Amor Fati allows us to change our view of life's challenges. Rather than seeing them as threats, we see them as opportunities for transformation. Every time we overcome difficulties, we move closer to our true selves, discovering our weaknesses and developing our strengths. From this perspective, hardships are not obstacles, but an important part of the process of self-discovery and inner growth. Amor Fati helps us stop fearing challenges and start seeing them as steps toward becoming a stronger and more mature person. Chapter 5, Amor Fati and the Power to Forgive, why accepting fate helps us let go of grudges. Introduction. Forgiveness and the ability to let go of grudges are key elements of emotional health and personal growth. Grudges often arise when we feel wronged or suffer because of the actions of others, whether they are close people, friends, or even strangers. Amor Fati helps us see these situations differently. Instead of holding on to resentment, we learn to let go and accept things as they are. In this chapter, we will explore how the philosophy of Amor Fati helps us find inner peace when we forgive and let go of grievances. 5.1 Understanding that the past is unchangeable. One of the main principles of Stoicism is accepting the past as something that cannot be changed. Human life is full of situations where things happen not as we would like, or where people act in ways that hurt us. From the perspective of Amor Fati, regret and resentment only increase our suffering, as fighting the inevitable leads to frustration. It is important to learn to accept that the past has already happened and cannot be revised or rewritten. This acceptance frees us from the illusion that we could have avoided pain if circumstances had been different. When we stop resisting what has already happened, we are no longer prisoners of the past. This is the power of Amor Fati. Accepting what cannot be changed allows us to focus on the present and build our future, free from the negative emotions associated with resentment and disappointment. 5.2 Shifting focus to self-control, not control of others. Grudges often arise because we expect certain behavior from others, and when they let us down, we feel negative emotions. However, the Stoics taught that we can only control ourselves, our thoughts, feelings, and actions. By focusing on what is within our power rather than the actions of others, we become less vulnerable to disappointment. Amor Fati teaches us that our reaction to others' behavior is our choice. This understanding helps us free ourselves from dependence on the actions and words of others. We realize that our inner harmony and happiness depend solely on us, not on those around us, making us free from grudges and feelings of injustice. 5.3 Forgiveness is a way to release inner negativity. Forgiveness is not so much a gift to another person, as it is a way to free ourselves from an emotional burden. When we hold on to resentment, we continue to experience the same feelings as in the moment of hurt, which impedes our inner peace and happiness. Amor Fati helps us let go of this negativity by teaching us to accept life in all its aspects, even those that seem unfair or painful. Forgiveness from the standpoint of Amor Fati is not about excusing others' actions, but about letting go of emotions that weigh us down. Instead of allowing negative feelings to control us, we can use them as an opportunity for self-reflection and improvement. Forgiveness becomes an act of accepting what has already happened and a step towards inner peace. 5.4 Understanding the reasons and motives of others. Grudges often arise because we don't understand others' motives and take their actions personally. The Stoics argued that it's essential to view the world from others' perspectives and try to understand their behavior. Amor Fati invites us to give up judgment and consider that each person has their own reasons and circumstances that may explain their actions. When we recognize that other people are also subject to their own weaknesses and difficulties, we begin to feel more understanding and compassion toward them. This helps us soften our resentment and let go of negative feelings. Thus, Amor Fati allows us to be more tolerant and compassionate, which leads to forgiveness. 5.5 Accepting the imperfection of the world and people. The world and the people around us are not perfect, and sometimes we will be hurt, whether intentionally or accidentally. However, accepting this imperfection helps us avoid feelings of disappointment and resentment. Amor Fati teaches us to accept the world as it is, with all its flaws and imperfections. When we understand that people are imperfect, we become less vulnerable to grudges and disappointments. Accepting the world's imperfection is the realization that grievances and conflicts are part of human nature, and our experience. Such acceptance allows us to be less demanding of those around us and to expect less from them, which eases the path to forgiveness and inner peace.